In literature, an allegory is basically a story that serves as a social or moral critique. Now, for example, The Boy Who Cried Wolf is an allegory which basically tells you how society will perceive a liar. Lord of the Flies by William Golding, on the other hand, is an allegory of nations, of how strong nations treat weaker nations, and is basically also an allegory of the savagery of human nature, in which the children on the island, who represent the people of the world, are basically a microcosm of society. But what if I told you that Elden Ring was an allegory for life? Yes, Elden Ring, the game that I love to hate and hated to love at one point, has become one of my favorite games. And it is because I refuse to put my foolish ambitions to rest. I persevered through the hardship, and I have finally become the Elden Lord. And not only have I become the Elden Lord, I have also purchased the DLC, because I'm an absolute masochist and sucker for punishment, that I simply have Stockholm Syndrome for Elden Ring. But in all seriousness, today's video is going to talk about how Elden Ring is an allegory for life. Now, before we begin today's video, I want to say Happy Merdeka, Happy Independence Day to all Malaysians, but I'm wearing black today because I don't believe that Malaysia has truly achieved Merdeka, or independence. Yes, we did kick the British out of Malaya, yes, but at the same time, the colonial surrogates, the capitalist bastards who are in charge of us, are basically preventing us, the people of Malaysia, from achieving true independence. So until Malaysia becomes a socialist republic, I will always wear black on Independence Day and never celebrate Independence Day, because I do not believe we have achieved independence. Now, without further ado, let's begin. Now, it's no surprise that Hidetaka Miyazaki's games, like Elden Ring and Dark Souls and Bloodborne, are, needless to say, a little bit frustrating. Well, when I said a little bit frustrating, that was really an understatement. They are so frustrating that they can actually drive a man to such depraved rage that, you were once a man of grace and polish who never spoke above a hush, but all at once you're using language that would make a sailor blush. For example, What the hell? This is a one-shot hit. What? Whoa! What the hell? This came without warning. No! Why is this unfair? What? No! Fuck! No! 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 But despite the fact that you'll fight a boss again and again and again, 200 to 300 times, and finally triumph over the boss, and then rest for a few minutes at a site of grace, basically reclaiming some of your lost sanity, Elden Ring is overall quite an enjoyable experience. So much that I actually purchased the DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree. But I do not recommend actually entering Shadow of the Erdtree until you're at least level 150. But 180 would probably be better. Yes, because I thought that I was some mighty Elden warlord after defeating the final boss in Elden Ring, but as it turned out, I was simply a Jago Kampung, a village champion in the DLC. Yes. But yes, everybody is well aware that Hidetada Miyazaki's games are known for their frustrating difficulty, their nail-biting difficulty, that it's actually sparked a debate for an easy mode. Because there are some people who believe that the game would be more accessible if it had an easy mode. That meant less grinding and less frustration as a result, and the ability to progress through the game faster, which would make it appealing or more appealing to casual gamers. And at one point, I also believed that Elden Ring should have an easy mode in order to make it more accessible to the layman. Because you can be a gamer who's played Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy, Far Cry, and all sorts of other games, but the moment you try Elden Ring, and you may have thought you were good at video games, you realize that no, actually you are not the pro that you think you are. So Elden Ring is indeed a humbling experience for many of us who have never played a From Software game. Now, I have played Bloodborne before, but I got so frustrated at the spider boss that I simply rage quit before I finished the game. Now, in retrospect, I should not have done that, but you know, I realize now that the struggle is what gives meaning to this experience. Now, this is going to be counterintuitive to what I've previously said, but I do believe that anyone with a conscience or anyone with principles must be willing to retract their point of view if they are proven wrong. I used to be one of those people who believed that Elden Ring or Bloodborne or Dark Souls should have an easy mode. But after finishing Elden Ring, my opinion has changed. My opinion has changed not because I'm dismissing the frustration that people have with these games, but rather that an easy mode would dilute the experience of these games and basically defeat the purpose. Let me explain. See, in most video games, the deck has been stacked in your favor. In most video games, you are supposed to win, and as a result, the game has been designed for you to win. For example, in Metal Gear Solid, you play as Big Boss, who is a super soldier, who is the veteran of several wars and a very, very competent fighter who knows what he's doing. So the moment you start playing, you realize that you are playing not as an ordinary human being, but rather as a superhuman with superhuman speed and strength, and you are basically playing as a guy who is, well, not in the league of ordinary human ability. In Final Fantasy XV, you play as Prince Noctis, who is basically the chosen hero who will bring light to the world again. So in most video games, you are the chosen hero, and the game makes you feel like the chosen hero. And it gives you a sense of power, of control, because you can simply hack through hordes and hordes of enemies or shoot your way through hordes and hordes of enemies without really thinking too much about it. But Elden Ring takes a completely different approach to the hero's perspective. In Elden Ring, you see things. You begin the game as a nobody. You begin the game with the same kind of power as a typical minion who gets shot up or who gets hacked up by the hero in any other video game. So you start off powerless, and you realize how powerless you are the moment you begin your journey. The moment you begin your journey, you get butchered by the tree sentinel. And then so you avoid the tree sentinel, and you head on further into Lingrave. and then you get butchered by the soldiers in Limgrave. Probably a few times before you get to the site of grace. And then you realize just how insignificant you are in this world and how powerless you are in this world. You are not the chosen hero, but rather you are as powerful as the minion who has been sent to stop the chosen hero by the boss in the previous games. Now you know what it feels like to be the powerless little grunt, don't you? But it doesn't mean that you have to be stuck in this predicament forever. You can get stronger, you can improve, you can get better weapons, and yes, you can get good if you learn the rules of the game and you learn how to play it properly as it's supposed to be played. You see, Elden Ring is not a sprint, it is a marathon. It is not a matter of how fast you finish the game or how many times you died while playing the game, but rather how much determination you showed that helped you to persevere until the end of the game. Because if you show enough determination, you will persevere. You will not only learn the attack patterns of the enemies, you will not only get stronger and get better weapons and a higher level, but also you will succeed in the end if you persevere. And that is the key word, ladies and gentlemen, perseverance. Something which you will not learn if there is an easy mode. When you first enter Stormvale Castle, the boss of the castle, the lord of the castle, Margit, the Fell Omen, tells you that he will put an end to your quest. And most likely, if you fought Margit for the first time without leveling up, you will have been killed by him. In fact, it's not uncommon for people to come back to Margit much later after killing 5 or 6 different bosses. Margit is fundamentally the gatekeeper of Stormvale Castle. And every time Margit kills you, he tells you to put your foolish ambitions to rest.
Put these foolish ambitions to rest, Aura. Put these foolish ambitions to rest, Aura. Put these foolish ambitions to rest, Aura.
But the fact of the matter is that this is actually a challenge. This is not meant to discourage you. This is actually meant to challenge you to get better, improve your stats, get stronger, improve your character, improve everything about yourself before coming back to challenge Margit. Because the game gives you the option of skipping Margit for the first part of the game and moving on to other sections. Margit is not a compulsory boss for the first segment of the game. Now, if you want to progress to the end of the game, yes, Margit is a compulsory boss to beat. But Margit is not really meant to serve as a boss that you fell in order to progress through the game, but rather as a lesson. Because if you persevere, if you keep leveling up your character and you get stronger weapons and better spirit ashes, you will find that every time you challenge Margit, even if you die in the process, you will find that you keep getting better and better, and his health bar keeps going lower and lower, until finally you defeat Margit. And then you realize that what you saw as an impossible barrier once has now been vanquished by you, and nothing can take away that feeling. And this is why I believe that an easy mode would defeat the purpose of Elden Ring, because it is the payoff of the struggle that you see when you have finally defeated Margit the Fell Omen. In an interview, the director of Elden Ring, Hidetada Miyazaki, explained that he was not dismissive over complaints of people who felt that Elden Ring was too frustrating, and he was indeed apologetic towards people who were frustrated with the game. But at the same time, Mr. Miyazaki remained firm that he would not put an easy mode in his game, because it would defeat the purpose of the game. Because Elden Ring is meant to give you, like any other Souls game, is meant to give you the feeling of joy after overcoming hardship. And nothing can take away that experience. When Margit tells you to put your foolish ambitions to rest, this is not meant to discourage you to put the game down. This is meant to encourage you, to challenge you to get stronger, to get better, to become a much more powerful warrior, so that the next time you may possibly stand a chance against Margit. It is a challenge for you to get better. And when you have overcome Margit for the first time, just like in overcoming any other Souls game boss, after putting in so much effort into the endeavor, nothing can replace that feeling. And it is an exclusive feeling that people who have played Souls games have. It is not something that regular casual gamers can have, because regular casual gamers do not have the drive to push themselves to that extent. There is a sense of accomplishment, fulfillment, that you have overcome this seemingly impossible obstacle on your own merit. And to be frank, putting an easy mode would basically take away that sense of accomplishment and defeat the purpose of Elden Ring altogether, to persevere and overcome hardship. And I think this is a great lesson. This is a great allegory for life. Let me explain. The Chinese philosopher Confucius once said that our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. And I think that this is the core lesson that we have to learn from games like Elden Ring. And this lesson would not be taught to people if Mr. Miyazaki were just to install an easy mode in his game. Because the idea behind Elden Ring is exactly this Confucian maxim. Our greatest glory is not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. Or in more modern terms, to quote Rocky Balboa, it's not about how many times you get hit, but it's about how many times you can get hit and keep getting up after getting hit. It's true that for those of us who were not born with a silver spoon, or who were not born with capitalist parents, life is a struggle. Life is hard. Things don't always go according to plan. Sometimes we get beaten down. Sometimes we get put in a position when we are at the lowest of the low. But even so, the fact that we are willing to struggle, to endeavor, to pull ourselves out of such an unfavorable situation is proof itself of our heroism. Elden Ring basically tries to convey to you that you may be frustrated sometimes. You may not get what you want. You may find obstacles in your way that are seemingly impenetrable. But there is no such thing as an obstacle that cannot be penetrated. Because no matter what it is, there is always a way to defeat it. And in Elden Ring, bosses that may have seemed impossible at one point, when you actually looked back at these bosses, you realize that these bosses were fundamentally teachers. They were teachers in the sense that they humble you and they make you improve. They drive you to improve yourself, to level up your character, to get stronger, and to become better before challenging them again. And when you have defeated them, you have defeated them on your own merit. And that's the point of Elden Ring, folks. The idea that struggle is not necessarily bad, and perseverance is key. I probably mentioned in the early part of the video that in Elden Ring, you are not some superhuman with superhuman powers, and you are not the chosen hero. You are simply an insignificant person in this whole larger scheme of things. And so you have to quite literally earn your position. You see, in most other games, like I mentioned, you are the chosen hero. So you already have superpowers that no one can take from you. For example, if you're Noctis of Final Fantasy 15 or Big Boss of Metal Gear Solid, how many of us are actually superhuman, super soldiers, or, perfect warriors at the tender age of 20 or 21? Elden Ring makes you start weak. It makes you feel insignificant. But as you level up, you learn the ropes, you get stronger, this develops a sense of confidence, unlike in other games which place you as the chosen hero. Because you have endeavored to achieve such feats, and you have achieved such feats on your own merit. You have defeated these seemingly impenetrable bosses. You have defeated these seemingly impossible bosses because you put in the effort to level up. You put in the effort and dedication to strengthening yourself. And you persevered regardless of the circumstances. And you rose over your circumstances. And that feeling is the feeling of achievement against the odds. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the beauty of games like Elden Ring. The feeling of achieving success against the odds. And it is an inspiring moral message. It is an inspiring allegory for life. Because despite the fact that life may bash us down, life may put obstacles in our way, life may sometimes be unfair, as Elden Ring is unfair, there is always a way to overcome these obstacles. And rather than give up, we should persevere in achieving our foolish ambitions. So yeah, I'm going to end this video by saying that I retract what I said about Elden Ring needing an easy mode. I think an easy mode would in fact defeat the purpose of the game altogether. Because the purpose of the game is fundamentally to teach you that failure is not always final. If you encounter obstacles, if you encounter failure, if you encounter frustrations, it is not the end of the world. There is always a way to rise above your circumstances. And that is the beauty of Elden Ring, because Elden Ring is fundamentally an allegory for life. You may get beaten down. You may fail. You may feel defeated. You may feel that there's no hope. You may feel powerless. But there is always a way to overcome the obstacles that are thrown in your way. And that is the takeaway that every player who has completed Elden Ring should get. And that takeaway would not be received by people if they had simply resorted to an easy mode. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.